Hi, everybody. This is Professor D, and today we're going to talk about assessments. Ah, some of you hate the word assessment, and I get it because it's tied to so much of what we do in terms of accreditation and yada, yada, yada. I get it. But as it pertains to learning, assessments are part of the alignment process. Okay, we start with our learning objectives. We identify the content that we're going to use to bring home those learning objectives. We have the learning activities that work with the content and the learning objectives. And at the end of it all, we have to assess whether or not we got there. We got the students where they needed to be. Here's this learning objective, and this is what was supposed to happen. And we always talk about learning objectives being measurable. The measurable is the assessment. Okay. Now, traditionally, we're going to look at assessments with tests and quizzes. Okay. And I was with some colleagues yesterday talking about assessments in the online world, and they're talking about using things like Lockdown Browser and all these other software programs that basically watch the students as they're taking these tests. And then again, this is just my opinion, but I would rather we all just assume the students are going to have other things around them when they're taking their tests. They're smarter than us when it comes to being creative about finding things. You can look at all these old movies that some of us used to watch and all these TV shows, and that moment where the student has the cheat sheet on their wrist or on their hand. They've written everything on their hand, or they have it tucked away in this little piece of paper. It's the modern era now. They have all this technology. I would rather focus on our assessments being unique and different and tapping into their individual nature, and not worry about things like Lockdown Browser, okay, or other programs that watch the students, okay? Because put yourself in their shoes. I mean, do you really want to be watched? You're already stressed enough trying to take this test. Do you want to feel like, oh my God, I can't look in any direction because I might get in trouble? There might be a red flag. Anyway, that's my approach. And so let's think about assessments in a little bit different way. If the assessment is really to gauge whether or not the student got it and whether or not they met the learning objective, then let's think creatively. Now, if you have 100 students and you're teaching a sciencey class and you really need them to know very specific things, yeah, sure. You need to create an environment where they can regurgitate that information and they know it. There's certain industries, certain worlds where we need to make sure that students know things, that it's lodged in their mind. But still, where possible, I would encourage you to find ways to have them apply the knowledge that they've gained. What is it that you can put in front of them where they can demonstrate that they know this stuff? That they can apply the information that you've presented to them throughout the course or throughout, part of the course. Because we're talking about assessments. Assessments don't have to take place at the end of the semester. They can be, 3 weeks in. They can be halfway through, i.e. the midterm. So I'm encouraging everyone to just think a little bit differently about assessments. They can be quizzes, they can be tests. They can also be projects. They can also be presentations. They can also be demonstrations. And then there's a term that I like, which I used recently in a culinary course, validations, okay? Now, the reason why I use the term validations is part of my struggle sometimes with certifications, because sometimes we certify students to do certain things, but then, they have this piece of paper that says they can do something, but 3 months later, they're asked to demonstrate that they can do that thing and they can't do it because it's like some certifications are like a one-time certification. And that worries me because we're supposed to be preparing students to be the best possible selves, to have that permanent improvement. And so I like the idea of validations because it's something that they can do over and over again and keep their skills sharp, okay? So these are ways that we can assess whether or not students are where they need to be. And it is really, again, back to creativity. So if there is something that you're trying to figure out to see whether or not the student knows it, construct something that is individualized. And yes, it could be a little bit more work. I accept this, but I would rather know that the student really gets the information instead of just copy and pasting the information. And part of that is being able to construct a question in such a way that they have to answer it from their perspective and they have to put themselves into it. They can't just, copy something on Google that kind of addresses it. And you need to be straight up with them and say, do not just copy and paste. I'm looking for your words. I'm looking for your insights. I know that the way that you write. And maybe that means you're not giving them 100 questions or even 50 questions. Maybe the assessment is 20 questions if you're going to give a test of some kind. If you're going to do a presentation, then you're asking for different things. You're asking for them to illustrate something, to use visuals, to capture something. That might be a little bit different. If it's mathematics, the assessment could be them, a, a, a video of them completing the problem. That's not something they can just pull from the internet. They have a video. There they are writing it out, maybe on a piece of paper, but it's video that's capturing the assessment. There's no reason why we can't do that. Okay, we have the technology. Obviously, if you're in the classroom face to face, then that's them doing the same problem in front of you. But ultimately, just believe that we have the technology to do everything that I'm talking about. The assessment can be a number of different things. If you're going to construct a question, construct it so that they are speaking from their vantage point. And I'll give an example. In your own words, what would be the script that you would use to explain this concept to a new employee? Okay, and that's something, that framework right there that I just gave you could be used in so many disciplines, okay? Because hopefully many of our students, some of our students are going to become leaders and managers in different organizations, and they will probably be part of the onboarding process. And that's the type of question where you convey a concept, you convey a philosophy for the department, a philosophy for that business. And so that forces them to think differently. That's not something you copy and paste off the internet. Maybe bits and pieces that they borrow, but then we can also get them in the habit of providing sources, references, works cited, depending on which world you enjoy. And again, that personalizes the question for them. Okay, and we can do that with pretty much everything. But again, let's go back to the learning objectives. What is it that we're trying to accomplish? And what are the many ways that we can help the student prove that they know what they know? So that's a little bit about learning objectives. If you have a struggle, if there's something that you really can't figure out how to design an assessment around those learning objectives, then let me know. Send me an email. I'd be more than happy to help. I like a good challenge. And that's it for now. See you soon. Bye-bye.